Okay, again, my name is James. I'm a video production specialist here at Videoguys. If you have any questions, definitely make sure to give us a call at 800-323-2325. Now, today we're going to talk about what is NDI. We're going to give a very brief overview of what NDI is. We're going to talk about how you can have NDI devices communicate with each other. Then we're going to talk about some of the differences between full bandwidth NDI, NDI HX2, and NDI HX3. And then we're going to talk about different workflows where those different versions of NDI might fit in better than others. And then we're going to talk about some of the cool products that are coming out that are utilizing NDI HX3. So let's get right into it. What is NDI? NDI, if you don't know, stands for Network Device Interface. And basically what that is it's an AV over IP protocol. So you can put video onto either a local area network or onto the open web to transmit the video and do some cool stuff with it. Now with NDI, that's a specific protocol. It's a standard that was made by the NDI team, New Tech, which is now Vizrt. And so with NDI, you're able to put a camera onto your network, maybe a switcher onto your network, a controller onto your network, some encoders, some decoders onto your network, and now all of those devices can communicate to each other, and it just makes it super easy to have all of that be standardized. Now, we talk about NDI a lot here at Videoguys, and in fact, we do a show every November called NDI November. So definitely, if you want, just a refresher, I highly recommend checking out that playlist. It's on our YouTube channel. You can find it on our playlist. And of course, we will be doing another NDI November at the end of this year in November. And, I'm sure we're going to talk about NDI HX3 a lot more then, but we thought that we would talk about it now as well. So all of those devices on your network, well, how do they communicate with each other? And that's where a network switch comes into play. Now, if you know Videoguys, you know that we always say that the Netgear M4250 switches are our #1 solution when it comes to troubleshooting NDI. And that's because these network switches are designed for Pro AV over IP. Now, just because Netgear is committed to Pro AV does not mean that these only do NDI. They also have profiles for Dante. They have profiles for SMPTE, some of the higher end switches. So just Pro AV in general works really well with Netgear, and Netgear is committed to that. And so much so that now that a lot of NDI devices are becoming wireless, they're even making wireless access points, which we are in the talks with Netgear right now to have them join us on a show and talk about the wireless access points. But in their simplest form, a network switch is a hub that makes it so all of your NDI devices can communicate to each other. And with that communication, you can also provide power to the devices on your network. And they're designed for, again, Pro AV. They're dark, they're black, they're small, they're quiet, they're compact. And, this is a desktop model, but they do make the majority of their switches are rack mountable, designed to be in a Pro AV rack. So Netgear is committed to Pro AV, and this is one way that you can have all of your NDI devices communicate to each other. Now, we talk about Netgear all day long until we're blue in the face. Let's have Netgear talk about these brand new desktop switches.
Introducing 2 new additions to the powerful AV line of M4250 switches, featuring all the power of the AV line, now in a new desktop form factor. Ideal for conference rooms, mobile studios, and more, with placement behind a screen, on the wall, or under a table. Plus, simplify your AV multicast deployments with Netgear IGMP Plus for out-of-the-box functionality. The revolutionary AV user interface contains pre-configured profiles for all major audio, video, and lighting protocols. With automatic multi-switch configuration and profile-based setups, setup is a snap with no need to hire an IT professional. PoE Plus functionality allows Power over Ethernet connection to a range of devices for data and power over a single cable for up to 30 watts per port and a budget of either 110 or 220 watts. The powerful M4250 AV line of 1 gig AV over IP compact desktop switches.
Sorry about that. Didn't unmute right away. That's a great little video explaining what the Netgear M4250 switches are. So now we kind of know what NDI in general is, and we know how the NDI devices communicate to each other. Now, which protocol should you use? Should you use full bandwidth, NDI HX2, or NDI HX3? So now we're going to break down the pros and cons to each one of those, starting with full bandwidth. Now, full bandwidth came out a number of years ago, and full bandwidth was the original AV over IP when it comes to NDI. And with full bandwidth NDI, you get uncompressed video over the network. Now, that's just straight from the camera to wherever you want to send that video source, and it's going to be uncompressed. And since it's not being compressed, there is very little latency. According to NDI's official website, we're looking at 16 milliseconds or about 1 frame. So, especially if you're going to be transmitting at 60 frames per second or especially higher, that is basically unrecognizable to the human eye, and very easy to sync up your audio and your video on the fly without having to do basically anything. Now, the downside to using full bandwidth is it takes up a lot of network bandwidth. A standard network is probably going to be a 1 gig network. And if we look at this chart on the right here, if we can bring this up full screen, you'll see that at 1080, 60 frames per second, that we're looking at about 132 megabits per second of bandwidth per source. So if you want to use, let's say 4 or 5 cameras and use full bandwidth on a 1 gig network, you are going to be maxing out your network very, very, very quickly. Now, of course, this is going to be uncompressed and it's going to be extremely high quality, and you're not going to have to worry about latency, but you will have to worry about your network bandwidth. Now, if you are in a studio that has a 2.5 gigabyte network or a 10 gigabyte network, you probably don't have to worry about that. But a lot of these smaller to medium studios, they may have to take that into consideration. So shortly after full bandwidth came out, NDI came out with NDI HX. HX is basically not supported anymore, so we're actually going to skip over that, and we're going to talk about NDI HX2. HX2 is using a compressed file, an H.264, so because it's a compressed file, you're going to use much less bandwidth on your network. Again, if we look at this chart on the right here, you'll see to send a 1080 60p video feed, you're looking at about 16 megabits per second compared to 130 megabits per second with full bandwidth. So you can imagine you can get a lot more NDI devices on your network if you're using NDI HX2. So what's the catch? The catch is it's going to be a little bit lower quality. Because you're compressing it using H.264, it's not going to be an uncompressed video file. And because you have to do both compressing it at the camera and then uncompressing it at the source, that is going to add latency into the workflow. So, on NDI's website, they're saying, a couple frames. Typically, you'll see 1 to 4 frames of latency, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less here or there, depending on, which exact camera you're using and what frame rate and resolution you're using. But typically, it is going to add more latency. So you may see that, oh, that's not a good thing. Well, some people can't, don't have the budget to increase their network infrastructure, and they need to have 10 cameras in their workflow. By no means is this bad in terms of quality, especially when you're going to be streaming something. Usually streamed video is Rec. 709. To the naked eye, no one is ever going to notice the difference. The only way that you may notice the difference is if you want to do post-production with that video after the live stream. And in that case, maybe get some kind of onboard or external recorder to record locally, so you're not using the area network to get that compressed video, and maybe just use local storage for editing post-production. So that's when NDI HX3 comes into the play, and this came about, I want to say last year-ish. And NDI HX3, in my opinion, is the Goldilocks, kind of the best of both worlds, because NDI HX3 uses HEVC compression or H.265 compression, so it still compresses the file, but it's able to maintain a lot of that quality. So when we're looking at the pros and cons of NDI HX3, the pros are it requires less bandwidth than full bandwidth NDI. If we look at our chart on the right here again, you'll see that 1080 60p requires about 50 megabits per second for per source. And so that's about a third of what full bandwidth required, but it's going to be better image quality than NDI HX2. It's not going to be quite as good as full bandwidth, but it's still going to be very, very good. Now, of course, because we are compressing it, it's not going to be as good as full bandwidth, and there still will be a little bit of latency, but the good thing is most production systems allow you to delay your video to match your audio, and it's really becoming a non-issue, and that's why the Goldilocks is NDI HX3. Now, what kind of situation would you want to use full bandwidth over NDI HX3 or NDI HX2? We were kind of joking about this before the show. A lot of the times we like to talk about a good, better, best workflow, whereas there's no bad thing. But in this case, it really depends on your network and what you need. What is good, better, best for you may be different than someone else and their good, better, best. So we're just going to talk about the individual workflows and where that protocol works best. So for full bandwidth, again, we're talking about uncompressed video. So if you have a 2.5 gigabyte network or a 10 gig network, and you have the sky's the limit when it comes to your bandwidth, that's when you're going to want to use full bandwidth, because you're not going to be limited by your bandwidth, and you're going to get the best video and the best latency. Now, the exact opposite end of the spectrum, if you are in a studio where you only have a 1 gig network and you need, 6, 7, 8 cameras on your network, that's when NDI HX2 would come into the play, because again, it's going to be the least amount of bandwidth requirement per camera, and then in doing so, makes it so you can have more cameras on your network. But take in mind, this is going to have, again, not bad quality, but it's going to have the lowest quality out of the protocols that we're talking about, and it could potentially have the most amount of latency. Again, not really an issue when it comes to modern switchers, because they have video delay built into them now, so it's not really an issue. Now, NDI HX3 is perfect for that. Again, Goldilocks. In our studio, we use a lot of NDI HX3 because we're using a 1 gig network, but we only have at most 3 or 4 cameras in here. So we can still get a bunch of cameras on the network. We still get really good image quality. And again, that latency is mitigated in the TriCaster that we're using. So one of these will work in pretty much every studio. And you can give us a call and we'll help find out which one is the best for you. And the great thing about NDI HX, to be completely honest, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is NDI HX2 and HX3, if a camera is NDI HX3 compatible, a lot of the time, the camera manufacturer will allow you to choose which protocol you want to use. Do you want to use NDI HX2 or do you want to use NDI HX3? So that's kind of a nice perk with a lot of these manufacturers. And talking about manufacturers, let's talk about some of the new products that are coming out that are utilizing NDI HX3. Now, of course, we already talked about the fact that NewTek made NDI. NewTek is now Vizrt, and with Vizrt, they, of course, know and utilize NDI to the best of the best. And they just announced 2 new cameras, which will be shipping soon, arriving in our warehouse soon. Actually, what am I talking about? I have one right here. They're in stock right now. The PTZ3 Plus and the PTZ3 Plus UHD, these are Vizrt's latest and greatest PTZ cameras, and these utilize NDI HX3. Hello. Next is BirdDog. Now, BirdDog is kind of taking it to the next level, not in terms of image quality, even though their newest cameras do have upgraded image quality. But what I mean by taking it to the next level is they are taking it to the next level by utilizing NDI HX3 to make their cameras be able to be used and controlled over Wi-Fi. So, we talked about Netgear, and we talked about Netgear introducing their wireless access points. So now you can get a Netgear switch with a wireless access point, and you can control and receive the video from the BirdDog X1 or the X1 Ultra and control that camera through Wi-Fi. Now, we did a whole video on the new line of cameras from BirdDog, the Maki, the X1 and the X1 Ultra, and we were demoing off the X1 Ultra here that you see right here and controlling it via Wi-Fi. It's a really cool innovation, and I see that being hugely successful, especially in like houses of worship where they don't want to run networking cables, but they have to have a power outlet every X amount of feet. That's where I see something like the BirdDog really shining. Next is JVC. Now, the great thing about PTZ cameras and them being on the network is a lot of these cameras are getting free upgrades, including JVC's very own KYPZ510. This got a free firmware upgrade to go from NDI HX2 to now being able to also use NDI HX3. And of course, their brand new flagship camera, the KYPZ540, comes with NDI HX3 natively. It's pre-installed, so you don't even have to worry about upgrading it. It already has it on it. Now, the JVC KYPZ540N is going to be another game changer because it's one of the few PTZ cameras on the market that has a 40x optical zoom. Most cameras top out at like 30x. Well, JVC's new camera, the 540, tops out at 40x. Another camera that we want to talk about that we use in our own studio, the camera that we're looking at right now, the PTZ Optics Move 4K. PTZ Optics Move 4K also utilizes NDI HX3. This is one of those cameras that I mentioned before that allows you to choose which NDI HX protocol you want to use. Do you want to use HX3, get a little bit more image quality at the cost of a little bit more bandwidth, or do you want to use HX2 and save on the bandwidth and have a pretty standard image quality? So PTZ Optics Move 4K comes in 12x, 20x, and 30x models, and you can't go wrong with any of them, or honestly any of the PTZs that we've talked about. Lastly, NDI HX3 is not limited to just PTZ cameras. You can also use it for your encoders or decoders on your network. KiloView is a perfect example of that with their N50 and N60 encoders and decoders. Now, the great thing about both the N50 encoder and decoder and the N60 and the Cube R1 is, again, they can see everything, every flavor of NDI. They can see full bandwidth, they can see NDI HX2, they can see NDI HX3, and they can encode or decode in whatever protocol you want them to, because they're flexible. They understand that not everybody's using NDI HX2, not everybody's using full bandwidth. They give you, the end user, the choice to decide what you're using in your studio, and you don't have to worry about it when you're looking at your encoder because it can do it all. And it's the same thing when it comes to the KiloView Cube R1. This is an NDI either 4-channel or 9-channel recorder. And again, you can record full bandwidth uncompressed, or you can record in NDI HX2 or HX3. And It has both 1 gig network ports on it and 10 gig network ports. They understand that not everybody has a 10 gig network port and not everybody's recording in full bandwidth. Some people are just using 1 gig networks and using NDI HX2. And again, KiloView has got you covered in an all-in-one solution. So these are a lot of different products that are utilizing NDI HX3. And let's face it, I think a lot more are going to start using NDI HX3. And I think more and more are going to give you the option between which protocol of NDI do you want to use. So I know this still may be a little bit confusing. So if you have any questions at all, give us a call. And Adam over at the TriCaster has been pulling this up, and I totally forgot to mention it. We are doing a summer-long promo where you pick any 3 NDI devices, whether it's controller, camera, encoder, recorder, switcher, any 3 NDI devices, and you pair that with a network, an M4250 network switch, and we will give you $100 off of your order. I was supposed to mention that on the neck gear slide, but that is still valid, so definitely check that out. If you have any questions about the differences between them, give us a call, 800-323-2325. And I want to say thanks for watching. Subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and we will be live next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then. Peace.
Videoguys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.